let's start with something that you can probably relate to. An illusion of productivity just because you're busy. You work long hours and you work full days. Your weeks feel like you're constantly doing something, but somehow you're also not making progress. The work that really matters never quite gets the attention it deserves. You're busy and it's exhausting. Somehow progress feels thin. So let's talk about this, because a central tenet of the rise and grind movement, that hustle culture theme, is always going to be grinding, always working. It's like a religion, but too often it seems to miss the whole point. Busy feels productive because things are getting done and you're checking things off your to-do list, right? Maybe emails are answered, loops are being closed, and there's a sense of relief that comes with that. The relief of getting busy work done can masquerade as progress. Constant motion like this, though, it comes at a cost when you haven't taken time to consider mindfully what the priorities of your time should be. What should you really get done and what's most important? You're working so hard, but you're also feeling stuck. I honestly have fallen into this trap myself, thinking, oh, well, I got lots done and I answered everybody. So, I wasn't lacking determination, hard work, or ambition, but I had allowed the low impact work to take the space that should have been reserved for high impact work. And when I realized that I'd placed low value on my time, assuming it was okay for me to use up my time with busy work and not real progress work, I realized this needed to change. And further, I realized that my clients, my team, and everyone around me would also not value my time if I did not value my time. It was time to allocate my own time to high impact work. This was an important reframe for me. Hustle culture teaches us that busyness equals effectiveness, that long hours are proof of commitment, that the rise and grind is something to aspire to. But really? Is that what we're going for? Busyness is not the same as progress. And motion itself isn't the same as momentum. I built a little tactic for myself, and I called it the false momentum test. It is a simple mindful check that I didn't even have to tell anyone I was doing. At the end of each week, I would ask myself, did my time and effort move me towards a core goal, or did it simply create motion and momentary relief? Busy work closes loops and tricks you into thinking you're achieving. On the flip side, high-value work requires more foresight and often a different workflow. Some focused, some mindful, but all of it is deliberate. So it's time to recognize the difference and lead with awareness. This isn't a personal failure. It's really just simply a systems reframe. So let's discuss the power of gentle, deliberate starts and why a mindful approach matters far more than working hard ever will. So all we need to do is shift to mindfulness as a way to create oversight. When I talk about the thoughtful, mindful founder, I'm not talking about a personality type. It is a mindset. It's a way of approaching work and leadership with a little intention, particularly when things feel busy or overwhelming. So in this context, mindfulness becomes very practical. We just start with awareness and noticing where your time is actually going. So we have to be real and a little ruthless. It's not about where you think your time is going, it's where it's really being spent. Then we apply discernment, learning to see the difference between busy work that feels productive and work that actually creates progress. Then intention before action. Choose what deserves your energy and how much value you are going to get from the time you spend working. And make that decision before urgency decides it for you. And this is where it's really easy to get it wrong. An important note here. Anti-hustle does not mean anti-ambition. Gentle doesn't mean passive, and deliberate definitely does not mean slow. Thoughtful founders still move forward and build massively ambitious things, but they drive their work hours based on progress and value, committing to what's most high value and mindfully setting aside busy work as low priority. Remember that urgency-driven work is reactive, and it scatters your focus and keeps you responding all day without ever quite steering the ship. So what's the biggest culprit here? Ask yourself this. It's feeling like you need to handle your emails multiple times a day. Raise your hand if you've fallen for that one. Intention-led work is different because it's focused, value-oriented, and aligned. Momentum without pressure or hustle. At its core, thoughtful leadership is simple. You decide what matters most before you start doing anything at all. Once that mindset shifts, the work itself starts to look very different. So let's take mindset and turn it into discernment. I recently read a book called Beyond Wanting by Matt Cook, who talks about goals in the form of a ladder. His analogy helps us picture our approach by thinking through how we might climb that ladder. So your big goal is at the top of that ladder. The smaller goals that lead you to that big goal, the real work, those are the rungs of the ladder. If you're trying to climb that ladder, you don't stop on each rung to dance, fool around, waste time, or work on something completely unrelated, right? You climb. This analogy stuck with me because it mirrors the best approach to mindfully tackling tasks on the way up to that big goal. You start the ladder saying, hey, I'm going to get to the top. And in order to do so, I'm just going to take each step along the way. High value work is the work that helps you step up the ladder. Busy work is distraction. It's movement that just keeps you occupied, but it doesn't take you upward. Both options can fill a day, but only one moves you closer to the goal. High value work creates progress. Busy work creates false momentum. This matters most at the beginning of things. New projects, new launches, new phases of growth, when clarity hasn't yet been fully established. A lot of founders go wrong by simply jumping straight into the doing part without first declaring what they're actually building. Clarity early on means naming the goal, identifying the smaller steps that lead there, and choosing actions that support those steps. Not everything that happens to show up in front of you. If that thinking phase gets skipped, something very predictable happens. Distractions fill the gap, and low-value tasks take over. You still feel motion, you've been doing a lot, but are you climbing that ladder? So I always come back to a few simple questions. I ask myself, what am I building? Why does this matter right now? And how does this piece of work move the goal forward? If I cannot answer those clearly, there's a good chance that the task isn't ready yet and I should not just jump into doing. Another way I think about this is the weight of the work. Some tasks are heavy. They're dense in that they carry a lot of impact for the time invested, and they move you directly towards a meaningful outcome. So these are the tasks you should prioritize. Other tasks are lighter. They might be easier to start and easier to finish, but what's their impact once they're done? So I often mentally rank my work by weight. Heavy, midweight, lightweight. Heavy gets done first. That's my priority. And then I order my focus and my time accordingly. And just as important as weight is whether something is actually actionable. If a task isn't clearly set up for action, if it's vague, fuzzy, or unresolved, you're going to find it has a habit of consuming time without delivering much return. So in those cases, I treat it as a question, not a task. I write it in my list as a thing to clarify before it earns a space on my to-do list. Remember, action without clarity is just motion, and motion doesn't mean momentum. A simple rule helps. No action before clarity. Before something becomes a project or a task, it needs to be clear enough to make big moves on. So when I look at high-value work through that lens, it usually has at least two things going for it. It moves a stated goal forward, it compounds over time, or it removes friction later. Okay, so before we move on, I want to give you a quick snapshot of what high-value work actually looks like in real life, because it's not always the big dramatic moves. Most of the time, it is these small choices that protect your focus. I call these my mental filters, and I keep them in mind when I'm focused on high-value work. Number one, the one thing filter. What is the one thing that actually moves you towards the goal? Number 2, your calendar is your value. If it's all reacting and busy work on your calendar, your goals do not stand a chance. 3, the inbox lie. Admin isn't a business plan. Number 4, version 1 is allowed. Make it exist first, make it good later. 5, decision fatigue is real. Reduce choices and build defaults. 6, the enough question. Define the wins, then stop. 7 is a tiny reset ritual. 60 seconds to calm your brain and find the next step. Number 8 is stop over-explaining. Clarity is a kindness. 9, your business needs white space. Space where good decisions happen. And 10, gentle consistency wins. A repeatable pace beats a burnout sprint. I'm going to elaborate on these 10 over the next couple of weeks in a series of quick reels. These are going to be little 30-second resets that you can actually use in your day. So subscribe so you get notified and check the playlists. I will keep the full Thoughtful, Mindful Founder Filters series organized right there for you. Remember, high-value work creates forward motion and leverage. Busy work usually creates neither. When you start choosing work this way, the right things get done first, and you learn the power of mindful prioritizing. And you feel a little more deliberate and relaxed as a bonus. Okay, let's wrap this up. All of this is very doable, and it takes not much more effort than mindfully building a little check to the start of every project. When you start building this way, something shifts. Decisions get cleaner, efficiency improves, and you're powering up that goal ladder with less wasted effort. You find that saying no becomes easier as well because you're clearer on what actually matters and you've felt the exhaustion of wasted hours in the past. Energy stops being drained by noise and progress begins to compound. You don't need to lean on constant intensity and embrace hustle culture until you're eyeballs deep in burnout. You see the flaws in that mindset and you're able to say, nope, that's not for me. Thanks. This is what thoughtful, mindful entrepreneurship creates. It's a simple practice. So I want to leave you with a quick challenge. Take a moment this week and ask yourself, how would more clarity change how I'm working right now? Then choose one high-value focus, just one, and give it your full attention. Let's build sustainable momentum by leaning into the thoughtful, mindful founder approach.